My half-sister ruined my marriage, stole the life I worked so hard to build, took everything I loved, and now she wants me to officiate her wedding, but I've been planning the perfect revenge all along. My husband Jerry, a 52-year-old man, and I at 48, had been inseparable for nearly 12 years, with 10 of those spent as a married couple. In the early days, every second we shared overflowed with joy. Each moment brought laughter, dreams, and the small gestures that deepened our affection. We were a solid team facing life side by side. Our smiles were infectious, and even mundane days shone a little brighter when we were together. We reveled in the warmth of lazy Sundays and impromptu date nights that made everything feel just right. Life was uncomplicated, and we cherished every minute of it. Then gradually the atmosphere began to change. Our cherished date nights turned tense, and the carefree laughter we once shared grew fainter. I started to notice that Jerry was spending more time absorbed in his phone than with me. The easy camaraderie had been replaced by a tangible strain. Our happiness seemed to be slowly evaporating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that our bond was slipping away. The intimacy we once took for granted was giving way to a growing distance that appeared nearly impossible to mend. Late-night phone calls and unusual messages soon became too frequent to ignore. I questioned his shift in behavior, and the sense of detachment that persisted even when we were side by side. Yet, Jerry dismissed my concerns, insisting I was overreacting and that he was merely preoccupied with work. Deep down, however, I knew my doubts were more than mere paranoia. One Friday evening, determined to recapture our fading connection, I decided to surprise him with a dinner date. I headed to his office, eagerly anticipating a night filled with warmth and reconnection. My excitement quickly soured, though, when he messaged me that he would be working late because of an urgent project. I exhaled deeply, accepting the change without revealing that I had been waiting for him. Just as I was about to leave, I spotted him emerging from his workplace, a move that clashed sharply with his claim of being overwhelmed by work. Confused and curious, I trailed him discreetly, unaware that the scene unfolding would shake me to my core. I followed him as he drove to a neighborhood pub. I couldn't fathom why he would be there or why he had deceived me. From my hidden spot near the bar, it soon became unmistakably clear. He was meeting someone. I froze as I recognized a familiar silhouette. The woman then sat directly in front of him, and in that heart-stopping moment I realized it was my own stepsister, Karen. Shock overwhelmed me, my legs buckled, and I nearly collapsed right there at the bar. I watched in disbelief as Jerry and Karen held hands and exchanged affectionate smiles. The realization struck like a crushing blow, leaving me nauseated and reeling from the betrayal. I fled the scene in a daze, praying that he wouldn't notice my absence. That night remains one of the most excruciating moments of my life. I haven't cried so much since my dear dog passed away last year. It was devastating to learn that the person I envisioned spending forever with was betraying me with someone so close. For some background on Karen, my stepsister. After my parents divorced when I was very young, my mother remarried a man named Harry. Harry, who already had a daughter from a previous marriage, brought Karen into our lives. Initially, Karen and I hit it off despite our 4-year age difference. But as time went on, I recognized her talent for manipulation. She mastered the art of deception, bending any situation to her favor, whether it meant lying to our parents to avoid consequences or misleading complete strangers without a second thought. Even though we both came from fractured homes, she never concealed her envy and disdain towards me. As we matured and I moved on to college on a full scholarship, our interactions dwindled. I immersed myself in new friendships, classes, and the liberating taste of youth, while Karen continued to pester me during family gatherings with subtle, cutting remarks about my looks or insinuations that I should work out more. Her words were clearly designed to chip away at my confidence. Karen's behavior wasn't confined solely to me. She also had a peculiar habit of being overly complimentary to Jerry, my boyfriend at the time. She would remark that he deserved someone more attractive or praise his gym photos in a way that made him visibly embarrassed. I always assumed it was just her quirky nature, given her notorious reputation for inappropriateness with anyone I dated. After I married Jerry, her flirtatious antics appeared to subside, so I dismissed them as harmless. But that night at the pub, witnessing them together made it painfully evident that their affair had been simmering for a long time. Their ease and familiarity with one another was unmistakable. When Jerry finally returned home that night, I pretended to be fast asleep. He staggered in, reeking of alcohol and sweat, with no effort to conceal his disarray. His smug, almost defiant demeanor hinted that he believed he could continue this betrayal without facing any repercussions. I spent the entire night tossing and turning, agonizing over my next move. Before he was fully awake, I stealthily retrieved his phone from our bedroom and began sifting through his messages, call logs, emails and photos, documenting every piece of damning evidence by snapping pictures with my own phone. The next morning, after Jerry had left for work, I drove straight to my mother's house, convinced that she was the only one who could console me. With my stepfather away at his job, I had the privacy I needed. When I recounted to my mother what I had discovered, Jerry's affair with my stepsister, she was as shocked as I was. She almost refused to believe me until I presented all the evidence. Outraged at the thought that Jerry and Karen could commit such a treacherous act, she immediately decided they must be confronted in front of everyone. Having always treated Karen as if she were her own daughter, my mother's fury was palpable. We quickly formulated a plan to invite our closest family members over for supper at my place that coming weekend. My mother advised me to keep silent about our plan, ensuring that Jerry remained unaware. On the evening of the gathering, everyone arrived looking refreshed and in good spirits. We sat down to a shared meal, and as glasses of wine were poured, I caught my mother's eye and nodded, a silent cue that it was time. She rose to set up the projector, and I tapped my glass to command everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming tonight." I began, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. "I have gathered you here for a reason, a secret I've carried for far too long. Please focus on the screen, for I have a surprise to show you." Curiosity and apprehension mingled in the room as every eye turned to the projection screen. My mother had arranged the equipment, and I took a deep breath before connecting my phone. I started scrolling through the photos and messages I had salvaged from Jerry's phone. As the first image appeared, capturing an intimate moment between Jerry and Karen, gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Everyone stared in disbelief. "This is not easy for me," I said calmly. "But you deserve to know the truth," I continued. "These pictures and messages are clear evidence of an affair between my husband, Jerry, and my stepsister, Karen." The room erupted with shock, indignation, and disbelief. Faces paled, eyes widened, and many could only sit in stunned silence. My mother's expression melded anger with sorrow, and she stepped forward to hold my hand, silently assuring me that she was there. I scrolled through more devastating evidence, each piece revealing deeper layers of betrayal. As I laid out the details, the initial shock morphed into a palpable, seething anger. I then turned to face Jerry and Karen, who sat there in mute shock. Jerry's face flushed with guilt, while Karen, normally so calculating, now appeared vulnerable and small. The tension in the room was overwhelming. My mother stepped up, her voice firm and laden with disappointment. "How could you do this to our family, to your spouse, to your own sister?" she demanded, her gaze locked on both of them. My stepfather then directed his attention to Karen, asking if the revelations were true. Overcome with emotion, Karen broke down in tears, unable to muster a defense. Other family members expressed their disbelief and anger. Some exchanged disapproving glances, others shook their heads, while a few muttered harsh criticisms under their breath. In the face of such irrefutable evidence and raw emotion, Jerry and Karen were left speechless, unable to justify their actions. Despite the heaviness in my heart, I felt a measure of relief now that the truth had been exposed. I spoke up once more, addressing everyone gathered. "I didn't call you here merely to unmask their deceit. I also want you to know that I am divorcing Jerry. If Karen wishes to have my husband, then that is her choice. I truly appreciate all of your support during this incredibly difficult time." As my words sank in, solidarity and compassion flowed from friends and family alike. Jerry's face turned a deep shade of red as he left in humiliation, with Karen trailing behind in an obvious attempt to escape. My mother wrapped me in a tight embrace, and I wept, releasing all the pent-up agony I had carried inside for so long. In the ensuing months, the betrayal took an immense toll on my spirit. I became emotionally exhausted, barely able to muster the strength to rise each day. The weight of the deceit, combined with endless tears, left me feeling hollow. Sleep turned into both a refuge and an escape from the harshness of reality. I eventually forced Jerry out of our home as we began the slow, painful process of divorce. Though the journey was long and arduous, I knew that I needed to free myself from his grasp. Just 2 days ago, after months of legal battles, the court finally granted our separation, and we were officially divorced. That day, I celebrated my newfound freedom with my mother, spending hours shopping and enjoying ice cream. The first time in years that I felt truly liberated. Later that evening, while watching a movie at my mother's house, my stepfather entered the room looking visibly upset. When my mother asked what was wrong, he turned his worried gaze toward me and inquired, "Have you seen Karen's latest Facebook post?" I shook my head and immediately unlocked my phone to check her profile. With bated breath, I navigated to her most recent picture with Jerry. They were smiling at each other with an air of affection. The caption read, "So happy to be engaged." As I absorbed those words, I noticed a ring on her finger, a detail that left me utterly speechless. My mother, watching me intently, snatched the phone and cried out in disbelief, confirming that Karen was indeed moving forward with marrying Jerry. I can't recall every detail that unfolded after that moment. The shock and amazement overwhelmed me. I sank back into the couch, my mind swirling with a storm of emotions as the weight of the situation pressed in. My mother tried to offer comfort, but words fell short. As if the night couldn't grow more unbearable, my stepfather received a call from Karen. Presumably, she was calling to share the news, and I asked him to put her on speaker so I could listen. Nodding, he took the call, and I heard Karen excitedly rave about her engagement and how thrilled she was to marry Jerry. I sat there, devastated and numb, until my stepfather abruptly interrupted her. "Karen, what you did today is not only disrespectful and hurtful to your stepsister, but it will have lasting consequences for our entire family," he said sternly. Clearly agitated by his tone, Karen replied, "I don't understand, Dad. Jerry and I are in love and we're getting married. What's wrong with celebrating that?" My stepfather shot back, "What's wrong is the manner in which you've handled this. You had an affair and now you think it's acceptable? Your actions have inflicted deep pain on someone you should consider family. Flaunting your engagement without any regard for the repercussions is simply unacceptable." Upon hearing his words, I broke down in tears while my mother comforted me. It seemed that was the moment when Karen realized my stepfather wasn't alone. She asked if I was present in the room, and he confirmed it. Soon after, Karen began urging me to talk with her. My stepfather gave me a curious look, so I snatched the phone from him and asked Karen if she truly understood what she was stepping into. With a sly smirk at the sound of my voice, she replied that she knew exactly what was at stake. Then she went on to suggest that I shouldn't be crying over Jerry since we were officially over, and he was free to marry her. As if that wasn't enough, she dropped another bombshell. Both she and Jerry expected me to attend their wedding and offer my blessing on their new journey. Hearing her words, I felt a cocktail of shock, rage, and disbelief. They wanted me to put on a facade of acceptance, unity, and joy while I was left picking up the shattered pieces of my own heart. The entire situation felt like a cruel joke. Karen even went as far as discussing how much it would mean to them if I delivered a speech on their wedding day, signaling to everyone that I was fine with their union. I was stunned and at a complete loss for words. Before I could react further, my mother grabbed the phone from me and addressed Karen directly, declaring without hesitation that Karen's behavior was despicable, a new low in fact. In return, Karen snapped back angrily, insisting that she and Jerry were deeply in love and demanding that the family accept their relationship. I excused myself from my parents and retreated to the guest room, where I locked the door and wept. The rest of that night is a blur. The next morning, I awoke burning with anger and determination. Karen's brazen actions had ignited a fire within me. Rather than letting the betrayal destroy me, I resolved to fight back head-on and come out stronger. I wasn't going to allow them to steal my happiness or disrupt my inner peace. With a plan forming in my mind, I was determined to make Karen regret ever inviting me into this twisted game. I opened my laptop and began scouring her social media profiles, sifting through every picture she had ever uploaded. Luck was on my side and I eventually found exactly what I was looking for. I then gathered the family and laid out my intentions. I would attend Karen and Jerry's engagement party, but I wouldn't be going alone. I planned to bring a very important guest as my plus one. Neither Jerry nor Karen knew what was coming. When I revealed that my companion would be her ex-boyfriend from college, Ron, my mother looked at me with raised eyebrows. Ron had once been the great love of my stepsister, even inspiring her to get a tattoo of his name during their relationship. They had a bitter breakup, and I was certain she would be utterly shocked to see me arm in arm with him. My mother's eyes widened in recognition. I flashed her a mischievous look, and she gave me a subtle nod, signaling her approval of my plan. My stepfather, however, warned me that I might be taking things too far, cautioning against ruining my stepsister's wedding. Reddit, do you think I'm in the wrong for inviting my stepsister's ex to her wedding, especially after she chose to sleep with and marry my husband? Update 1. It's been a few days since I last posted. I appreciate all your comments and am amazed by how many of you understand and even encourage my petty actions. I initially wanted to be the bigger person, but as Karen continued posting more engagement photos with Jerry, my resolve only grew stronger. I set my plan into motion by sending Ron a friend request on Facebook. To my surprise, he accepted, and we soon began chatting. I was completely upfront with him about my connection to Karen, and how she was now involved with my soon-to-be ex-husband. I explained that Karen had betrayed me with my own husband and was planning to marry him, and I wanted Ron to join me so that I could give her a taste of her own medicine. After hearing everything, Ron agreed to be my +1. I can't help but feel a thrill thinking about the expressions on Jerry and Karen's faces when they see me with Ron at their wedding. Even though my stepfather advised against it, I've decided to keep this plan under wraps for now. I'll update you once the wedding day arrives in a few days. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update. I had hoped to share more sooner, but a lot has happened and I needed time to regroup. As I mentioned, I did take Ron with me to the wedding. On the day of the event, I donned a brave face and confidently entered the venue with Ron by my side. The moment Jerry saw me arriving with my special guest, his eyes widened. He must have immediately recognized Ron as Karen's ex. We ignored his shocked reaction and proceeded to our assigned seats. Soon Jerry approached me aggressively, demanding, "Why are you here with Karen's ex?" I simply grinned, knowing he couldn't create a scene in front of everyone, and he had to reluctantly return to his place, shooting angry glares my way. When it was time for the bride to appear, all the guests rose from their seats. Karen, resplendent in her wedding gown and escorted by my stepfather, made her entrance. Spotting me among the guests, she smiled triumphantly. I returned a cool smirk, determined not to show any vulnerability. But then, when she noticed Ron standing beside me, she froze in shock. Although the music played on and my stepfather urged her to continue, Karen hesitated, her eyes darting between Ron and me as if trying to piece everything together. I held my head high and maintained a calm demeanor. Noticing Karen's lingering stare, my stepfather glanced between Ron and me, clearly understanding what was unfolding. The air grew thick with tension as curious looks spread among the guests. Suddenly, Karen surged toward me and stopped directly in front of us, her face contorted in a volatile mix of anger and disbelief. "Congratulations, Karen," I said evenly. "I'm truly happy for you both." "What the hell is this?" she snapped, her voice seething with fury. Locking eyes with her, I replied steadily, "This is my +1. With a hint of mischief, I added, "Meet Ron. You remember him from college, don't you? Perhaps that tattoo on your hand will jog your memory." Ron then stepped forward with an unreadable expression. "Hey Karen, it's good to see you after all these years. We're here to celebrate your special day," he said calmly, carefully avoiding any confrontation. Karen's cheeks flushed with anger as she retorted, "Celebrate your happiness? How can you be with someone like her? Are you dating her now?" I met her scorn with a cool smile and replied, "As I said, you invited me. I'm just here to honor your invitation and wish you and Jerry a lifetime of happiness. What happens between Ron and me is none of your business, especially since you're about to get married." Karen's fury only amplified the tension in the room. At that moment, Jerry, who was standing at the altar, rushed over and pleaded with her not to cause a scene so they could continue their celebration. But Karen, seething with anger, pulled him away and then, in a fit of wrath, hurled her bouquet across the room. The bouquet sailed through the air, leaving a trail of petals before crashing to the ground. Despite the collective gasps, Karen stormed out of the hall, her gown swirling behind her in a cascade of white as the door slammed shut with a resounding bang. The guests exchanged perplexed looks, unsure how to respond to such an unexpected turn of events. Some offered awkward smiles while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The once festive mood had shifted to one of tense confusion. Jerry glared at me and began to shout, but my mother quickly silenced him with a sharp command, reminding him of the humiliation he had already put me through. With a confident smirk, I told Ron that it was time for us to leave, and he agreed. The room erupted in a whirlwind of reactions. Disbelief, indignation, and whispered conversations filled the air. I walked out with my head held high, feeling as though the burden of betrayal had finally lifted. Everyone witnessed my pain, my resilience, and my ability to rise from the ruins of a failed marriage. I don't care if people say I went too far. I have never slept with someone behind someone's back or orchestrated a divorce. I simply gave my stepsister a taste of her own medicine. Update 3. I'm truly astonished by the overwhelming response in the days following my last update. It warms my heart to see so many of you understanding and supporting my actions, even if some disapprove. Honestly, I have no regrets about what I did. My stepfather later informed me that Jerry and Karen had officially ended their relationship. She refused to go through with the marriage, no matter how much Jerry pleaded. It appears she might still have feelings for Ron, and seeing him that day likely stirred those emotions once again. While I never take pleasure in someone else's pain, sometimes the only lessons people learn come from facing the consequences of their actions. Since then, Jerry has bombarded me with angry missed calls and messages, all of which I have blocked. My stepfather reproached me for my actions at Karen's wedding, and out of respect, I didn't argue with him. My mother advised me to give him some time and space, and I agreed. In the aftermath, I have decided to focus on rebuilding my life and rediscovering happiness within myself. I plan to seek therapy, as many have recommended, and concentrate on my personal growth, finding my passions and surrounding myself only with positive influences. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories.